Now, these statistics always take time to be processed, validated and uploaded, but more recent data exists for the number of daily services and the average passengers per service on an operator-by-operator basis running up to the end of the 2025 financial year. In 2025, we were running 8% fewer services than we were in 2020, excluding the Elizabeth line. Yet the average loading per service was up 1% across all operators. That means on average, Britain is running fewer, more crowded trains. To paint a clear picture of the state of our railway service, though, we have to dig into the numbers on an operator-by-operator basis. Now, this table shows that the operators that cut the most services between 2020 and 2025 are Chiltern Railways and Govia Thameslink Railway, including Thameslink, Great Northern and Southern, with both having reduced the number of daily trains they run by around 20%. That's 1 in 5 2020 trains that has been cancelled, a substantial reduction. If growth wasn't the aim of the game, you might argue this was prudent, given passenger loadings on these trains are only slightly up despite this reduction. So, you have a look at these, 3%, 6%. It's not such a increase in overcrowding, despite the number of services that's being reduced. But growth is the name of the game, folks. Therefore, what passengers are we losing? What potential additional passengers could we be bringing onto the railway had we not chopped those services in the first place? However, Cross Country, ScotRail, Avanti West Coast, South Eastern and Northern all reduced their timetables between 10 and 15%. We know that Avanti have further contracted their timetable this summer following instructions from the DfT. And in the case of Cross Country and Avanti in particular, their passenger loadings are up by 12% and 8% respectively. For trains that were already regarded as overcrowded before 2020, this suggests that overcrowding is now worse than ever before and worsened by the reduction in daily trains. What am I talking about? We're looking at Cross Country here, 15% reduction in daily services and a almost, kind of a matched increase in the amount of overcrowding per service. Meanwhile, Avanti West Coast, similar reduction, and you see it nearly a 10%, 8% increase in passengers per service. So, it's not really a new fleet. That means an increase in overcrowding. Without listing all of them, there are a chunk of operators running marginally fewer trains per day than in 2020, but what is noteworthy among this group is the operators seeing greatly reduced average loadings per train. Heathrow Express, C2C, South Western Railway and South Eastern. In the latter three cases, these are operators that relied on the commuter ebb and flow in and out of London that has been greatly diminished post-pandemic. So that's kind of what's interesting is these three here. Less, 16%, 15% and 25% reduction in the number of passengers per service. And these are services that I would argue were relying pretty heavily on pre-pandemic traffic. Heathrow Express is a particularly interesting one there, in terms of potentially reduced Heathrow traffic and flights in and out of Heathrow. That's interesting, particularly in relation to, some of the Heathrow airport news. We also see those operators that have actually increased the number of daily trains they run. Transport for Wales, Hull Trains, LNER and EMR, East Midlands, were running, this is East Midlands in 2025, by the way, folks, we're running at least a 5% greater timetable in 2025, and Grand Central were running 14% more trains a day in 2025 versus 2020.